Okay, so when you've cut out your fabrics, you're going to start with the back design, which is the top, the cover, the shell. You have two pieces. One is larger than the other. You need the larger one for this. So let's get started. Okay, here's your placement line. And then we're going to center this as best we can. Looks good. Making sure the stretch goes this way. Okay? Make sure that the stretch is going this way. Okay. Hopefully you can see this, but you have center points here and here and over here. I like and mark this on the outside so you can find them later. There she is. On the outside of the line. There. That's only if you need to find them. If you can see them on your fabric, which some are lighter than others, then you probably don't need to do that. Okay. Okay. Now, if you do not want a butterfly here, you would take this out. But I'm going to show you how to do a butterfly. Since we're not taking this out, we're just leaving it in the hoop so you don't have to re-hoop another whole piece. You're going to remove your pattern off of your embroidery machine and then put in your butterfly design. So let's take this back to the sewing machine since we're adding a butterfly. Okay. Now your design comes with a square around it. I skipped that part. You can put it on, it won't hurt because it's going to be the exact same square, but it just allows you to put it right where it needs to be. If you want to move it around, if you have a more higher end embroidery machine, you will have to remove the square out to do that, or put it on a larger embroidery frame. Now you can barely see the little head here. I put a little circle there so you can see where the little head is. Okay? You're going to take your little butterfly and you're going to fold him in half. Find that center line. There's a center line there. And we'll just line it up, making sure that the head is a little higher so it doesn't catch on the wings. See? It's going to be a little higher. Make sure, because this goofy fabric, when you're dealing with minky, it sometimes can move it, so and you tape that in place. There. Now you have a little butterfly. See? There'll be a little butterfly on his little butt. Now we can take it out. You're not going to cut off any of the selvage. None of this. You need it. You're going to be stretching this thing. Okay, our next step is the pleats. That's these, here, 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 and here. This is where this gets smaller. And you may find that these lines are going to show up in the finished. These are all removable. They're basting, they're bigger stitches, they're loopier. So you can fold this, line up all the lines, pin it, and then you're going to stitch it. You're going to machine stitch all 4 of these corners. If it's easier, you can cut down the center, but don't cut to the point. You're going to cut about there. Don't cut all the way to that point. And then you can just fold, pin it, now if you do that, you're only going to sew to the here. You're only going to sew to the edge of the square. Don't sew all the way down. This is important. This is the only reason why I'm talking on this one, because it's kind of hard to show options here. You don't have to cut, but if you do, again, this is why I don't like talking things, because repeat and repeat and repeat. You don't want to cut to the point. You just don't. And you don't want to sew to the end. So you're going to take it to your sewing machine and this one. I want you to see which one's the best one to see. This one. Okay. Let's take it to our sewing machine and we'll be right back. Okay. Now all your darts are done. Excuse me, I had a pin in my mouth. But not to the end. Do not go to the end of that piece of fabric. You just want to stop here. And you have your nice little pleats. And where you're going to go, I did this in black so you could see it, right alongside that. It's you could miss a little bit. I mean, it's okay if you miss it. You can always take it out. See, this is a little off a little bit, but all in all, it's going to be fine. It's just a teeny bit. That's all. So don't stress. And this is how it should look when you're done. I mean, for right now, this piece is set to go to the end. Now we're going to go to the next design. Okay, let's get started on the next. Okay, now we have your placement line. This is the tummy part. Remember, test your stretch. Always test your stretch. Center it in. Yeah. And let's go to the embroidery machine. Okay. First stitching. Again, we're going to mark outside so we can find our markings. This one doesn't have one just yet. It will. Right there. Okay? That's depending on the fabric you use. Again, these may show up on a lighter shade if you're using a lighter shade. This is your top. This here, part of it will be underneath a satin edge. But this is your guideline for your sewing machine at the end, and I'll show you, but I just need you to know that that is done when this is put together on your sewing machine. You will use this line. Okay? Now let's trim this. Leave a little selvage out here. Doesn't have to be up against the edge. There's a piece that goes over top of this, so don't work on it like crazy. And now you see why there's not a upper point, because we're cutting this out. Let me get my scissors sharpened. Okay, let's clean it up here. See, we're just removing some of the bulk. Okay. Okay. So now we're going to need, I don't know if you call them fins, legs, tails, what do you call them? All your little pieces. And the little ones are going to be pointing this way. So the little ones are going to be on the bottom, bigger ones on the top. Making sure your curve is going in the right direction. You can spray this. You put that in that, whoop, I did it upside down. See, this is why you got to pay attention to the direction. Now, if these are really thick pieces, like I've made these with felt, just a tip for people who use flatbeds, you can take a piece of tearaway, go over this so it doesn't catch on anything. A lot of times your foot will catch and then tear your design out, and then there you are. So just a tip to use this over top to protect it. I'm going to show you. Okay. By using a piece of tearaway, I prevent anything from catching. So you don't have to do this. It's just if your materials start getting really thick, and I will recommend this at the very end because the piece gets really bulbous. So it's just a tip. It's easy enough to take out. I love this tearaway. I never have to use two pieces, no matter what. I get this on Amazon. All the other types of tearaways that I get, the professional, from the stores, from the sewing shop, just like pieces of plastic, and they just, like after the first 2 stitches, it starts coming out. I don't like that. Okay, so now you've attached these, and what we're going to do is we're going to just trim these up a little bit. Like that. My big fat fingers, or if I'm moving too fast. And now we're going to spray the other pieces. Making sure the curve is going in the right direction, unless you want it the other way. I mean, I don't know, the pictures that I see, they go this way, but I guess if he's walking, his legs will move in a different direction. And his little tail. Another way, you can tape it. Good old tape. Love it. I have a big thing of it. You can tape your pieces down. All right. We got them all like tacked down. And well, let's trim these. Trim them up. Now, there is no placement line for the next piece. So, we're just going to take our next piece after trimming, making sure the stretch goes the width, and just place that down and go to your machine. White, it might be a little more difficult to see. Now, there is on here a little notch, but if you can't see it, you can always use the center guide right here. Okay, and then make sure you leave some selvage. before you cut. We're cutting on the outside this time. And do not cut your little flippers, flappers. I don't know what this is doing in here. Always check to wear your flipper legs, fins. I don't know on a turtle. I'm going to have to look that one up. It's a little tail. You know, the best part of this is, even if it's not really accurate, by the time you finish, you're never going to see this. Don't go that way. Let's clean her up. All right. I'm getting over a cold, so excuse me. Okay. Now we're gonna. Okay. Now you're gonna put in a square here. That you can skip it if you just want it for a toy. Even if you don't skip it, it's a basting stitch, so it can be removed. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. There. You got your little. What you're going to use this for is to stitch this down on a blanket, and you'll just find the center and then stitch here, here, and here, and here onto the blanket. Just gives you a guide so you can keep straight stitches. Okay, let's go to the next step. Okay, Mr. Turtle. Just some detail here, and then the satin edge on the outside. The satin edge on the outside is not a heavy one, it's a lighter one. The heavier it is, the harder it is to get your fabric to stretch. So it is a lighter one, and you don't need it with minky fabric anyways, those heavy stitches. So now comes the part where you need to take your time. You're going to fold these guys in. I don't know what the best way to do this here. I've done it only a million times. Okay, let's just get them little paddles to the middle. Should be all taped into the middle. And now comes the fun part. Here is your back. Okay. On this piece, this is your top because it has the same design here and here. So this has to meet up with that. So we are going to fold this in half. Put your little marks. Making sure that you keep top piece, and we're going to line up the lines and the markings. Easy peasy. Okay, the first section is going to be the easiest. So now we're going to take this and make sure that we line up as far as we can. This is going to curve in. Let it curve in. Checking the other side. Let it curve in. Now you can use spray adhesive. I like to pin, and if you're going to pin, you got to pin out here or way in here. So, nice thing about pinning on a small hoop, you can get your finger under it, push it. So that'll hold that in place. Making sure that everything else, don't worry if it's this way or that way. Just make it as neat as possible. So what happens on a flatbed is when this is done stitching, it's going to go down to your next point. You got to watch this because it could catch on these. If you want, you can put another piece of tear away so it doesn't catch on anything. You know, you need to know your machine and what it is. That's why this is just, these kind of things are not good for beginners. You have to learn your machine, learn your stabilizer that works best with your, so you're not ripping it out or tearing it out. It's just very important that, you know, you do these after you've done easier ones. Things that are worth throwing away, you know, test examples. So you can put this over top as a tip so your foot doesn't catch and rip it, because that can happen. So I just real quick want to take a quick picture and take it to the machine. All right, you got your first stitch. And what it is, it's right across the top, right there. And this is a basting stitch because you need to open this up. Otherwise you won't be able to stuff it. But it also needs to be tacked down to hold it in place. So that's a basting stitch. Now we're going to do the same, but we're going to match these and do as best you can, keeping this lined up about this much, about the width of this. You're never going to get these to match in the corners. That's okay. It's how it's designed because you have darts in there, and which caused it to shrink in. So you can spray on the out, take her down, pull her down. You might have to pull hard, especially the thicker your stuff on the inside here. It can be done. I've done it with very thick fleece, not the cheap skinny stuff, the thicker stuff. And make sure that your lines are all lined up. I don't know if you can see that. Even if you can't get that to come out there, these are all removable, and if they end up in showing on the end result, you can remove them. So like I said, don't stress yourself out. I don't want that going up that way. It's not easy doing this when you're trying to video and okay. So what's going to happen here is it's going to tack down here. It's not going to go all the way to the end. It's only going to be a small piece. And be careful, because now after this one's done, it's going to jump over here. So you're going to want to pay attention to anything catching on a flatbed foot. Like I said, you can put a piece of this over to help every time. It's just a small trick to add. Okay. Okay. We're almost there. We just have 2 more sides to go. Okay? Now you can unpin this. We're going to turn it. We're going to do the same thing here. Try not to get your spray in like that. Luckily, part of this is going to be cut off, so it's just hard to get rid of that stuff. Okay, again, line up as much as you can, making sure everything's lined up. And you can hold it while it's in the machine too. That always helps. Okay, don't worry about these. And then you're going to bounce over to this side. So it's going to start here and then jump over here. So just be aware of your tips and tricks. Like I said, we need to take our time at this. Okay. Now that it's tacked down on that side, we're going to move to the other side. Pin out again with your markings. Better when it's not clogged. Matching up the center points and the line. I don't know. Man, when I did the other ones with the thicker stuff, wow, I really had to tug on this. But it can be done as long as you're using fabrics that have stretch. That's why I have that on the website to make sure that. There's another thing. You need to follow the materials. Materials are important. Okay, so now it's all, this is tacked down, that's tacked down. We'll get to that part in a second. And again, if you want, you can use a piece of tearaway, especially if you've got bulky items. Okay, that's tacked down now. Now we're going to do the very last step. Okay, no pins are needed. I just put a little bit and goofy thing gets clogged. Other people get the same thing. Of course, it doesn't help when I'm spraying on my hoop. just pull it as best you can. It's not going to be perfect because your stitching actually is going to go in here. So just pull as best you can those corners. Mr. Turtle. Okay, now this time I am going to use a piece of tearaway at the end because I'm kind of afraid as it goes around it's going to hit these. So just a heads up. Piece of tearaway. And let's do the last step. All right. Take this out of the hoop. Okay. And then your finishing stitch. Let's take her out of the hoop. Clean up all that stabilizer. Okay, let's find our top. How do we find our top? You should see this at the neckline or the opening. Okay, you're also going to want to do the same here. You're going to have to find where it curves in. Okay, so this side here and here. Okay, follow that. And be careful. Okay. It has a little too much. We'll like even it up with the white so they're even. Okay. Now remember I told you there's a basting stitch in here. Just pull that open. Pull that open. Okay. Now follow. Maybe you can see it better on this side. There's kind of an edge here that goes around. Just cut all this go outside of this, making sure you leave some salvage. Take your time. Put too much work into this to slip and going over these bulky areas, slip into your stitches. And I'm sure that everybody's done that once in their life. And there you go, Mr. Turtle. Now here comes another hard part. You're going to have to pull one of the legs out, if you can. If you're having a hard time turning it, try and get one of these legs out. Like I said, it depends on the bulk of your fabric and what you're doing. The bulkier it is, the harder everything gets. The holes, stretching, everything. It can be done, you just have to take your time. Mr. Turtle. Oh, your little tape, little tail. Kind of pulled some of this off. It's going to get a little raggedy after you wash him, but that's kind of the cute part of it. At least I think so, and that's why I put it that way in the design. Other people might think otherwise. Okay? You don't have to buy the design because you don't like something. Be amazed at the goofiest things that I get bashed for, and it's simple things. Well, you shouldn't have done it this way, and you should. Who put limitations on everything? Only the law of physics is going to tell you what you can and cannot do. Okay, so now you're going to want all these seams here nice and even. Nice and even all the way around. Okay, so let's see if I can get you to see this a little better. Remember that stitching line I told you about? Right here is where you're going to stitch on your sewing machine. You're going to start from this edge. You're not going to go in. You're going to start from this edge and follow that line. On the outside edge of the satin edging, here comes the little line again. Follow that to get to the next. And then on the outside, again, I must have pulled some of those threads out. But once you get going, you can see the pattern to go and go all the way, following that line up against this. So it's on the edge of your satin, not on your satin, not on this side, here. You're going to make that little edge on the turtle shell. So take her to your machine and sew that up. Kind of fuzzy there. too far, but that's okay. I can stitch that up. See? Cut all these off. Your machine sewing. See how you can barely kind of see that little edge around. And your turtle body's done. Well, not completely done, but if you're going to attach it to a blanket, you're just going to find the center. But I'll show you that in a different video. You're just going to fold that, pin it. You're not going to stuff it until after you've stitched this to a blanket. And then you'll stuff it after. Okay?